Just a quick, not full review of the SLX RS-10 from Primary Arms. The short of it, this is another attempt to make a open emitter pistol red dot optic with some modifications. It's an RMR clone, right? Looking at the box, and honestly, out of the box, this thing initially seems really legit. I had 20 minutes of bliss where I thought this thing was the bee's. Do people still say bee's knees? For starters, it's actually a narrower version of an RMR or a 507, such that it fits within the frame of the handgun it mounts to, while also increasing the height of the optic above the box section. It's a square above the box section of the optic. This is doubly useful, as in that it conceals or just fits to the handgun better, but more importantly, in the context of shooting, when you're tracking the red dot, that is incredibly useful to see the dot for more of the cycle of the recoil. And in some circumstances, it means the dot actually should, in theory, never leave your field of view. There's a reason why the SRO has become so popular in both competition and duty alike. While this is obviously not an SRO-sized window, every little bit we can get helps. This uses an improved battery tray compared to the famous or popular 507 Holosun, which uses a much smaller screw that easily strips. This uses a full-size screw as well as a 2032 battery, which is much more ubiquitous and better than the Holosun one. There's also far less distortion compared to other micro pistol sights. On top of that, very low tint levels. Usually the lack of an aggressive notch filter is noticeable during the daytime because, well, that notch filter is required to achieve relevant brightness. But once again, this dude delivers. It's not quite as bright as an RMR, and yes, I could use one more brightness level if I could, choose. But it's close enough that it's fine by me, considering the lack of an aggressive notch filter. And finally, this whole package comes in at $200 hairs. This seems like a really competitive option on the market. However, when you kind of get down to it, the brass facts, if you will, the issues kind of start to build up, in my opinion. For some reason, Primary Arms thinks this is 2008 because this is a doctrine pattern sight. At this point, it's a done deal. RMR pattern won the format war for the large size optics. There might be a couple Delta Point holdouts out there. I know who you are. But beyond that, why? No one is using a doctor pattern sight on their pistol anymore. A slight consolation is that this does come with an MOS plate, so you can mount this to an MOS Glock and really not notice a difference. For the vast majority of people, doctrine pattern on a handgun means dead on arrival. It'd be understandable if that was the only thing. Okay, sure, they're trying to compete outside of the RMR sphere. Okay, perhaps. However, the issues just don't stop there. That aforementioned tall window is actually a smoke and mirror show. It's bullshit. The upper part, the part that, is curved and extends the viewport beyond the square portion, is fake. The dot can't go up there. This is in contrast to something like an RMR, which not only can get to the edge of the optic, but functionally speaking, get beyond the edge of the optic, which means you can see half the red dot. The train of misery doesn't stop there. This thing has a very bad refresh rate. While it is not something I would call a deal breaker, right? You can absolutely use this, and I was shooting, the Dickens Drill or whatever the hell it's called. It is very noticeable and kind of obnoxious. This is hard to describe, but it sort of looks like when you turn on this setting on Windows and, the thing that everyone did in 2000s, and you get the stupidly long pointer trail. That's kind of how it feels like in person. When the gun recoils, or when you even just move it in your hand, you'll notice the dot kind of trails, for the lack of a better term, which makes the firearm kind of more difficult to track under recoil, but really annoying when you're trying to settle the dot. And for that last maybe tenth of a second, or maybe 2/10 of a second, you'll notice the dot looks like multiple dots as it converges to a stationary position. But the end result is, while you can kind of work through this, it's 2022, we can do far better. And that ultimately ends up being that. I think this dot is actually onto something. It has a much more smartly designed viewport area. The housing, honestly, looks good. It's got removable batteries. It uses a full-size battery. And it comes in at a really competitive price while still being able to provide good brightness levels and really pushing the bounds of distortion or lack thereof. However, this thing really desperately needs a Gen 2, so unfortunately, I'm going to have to pass on this thing for now. Regardless, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.